Hello, and welcome to Scream Scene, the horror movie podcast where we watch every horror movie ever made in chronological order, and then we rank them from best to worst. My name's Ben.
And I'm Sarah.
Thank you all for listening to us today. Sarah, how are you doing?
I am melting.
Yeah, that's fair.
But overall doing well, because I am now sleeping in the basement. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's too hot, but otherwise, I'm having a great time.
I mean, when we have two hot people in the same room, it's always going to raise the temperature.
Very true, very true.
So what are we watching today? I know it's kind of a big episode and also a little bit of a combo breaker.
Yeah, so this is going to be a horror adjacent episode. As we've discussed in the past, we kind of used to do horror adjacent episodes as like a bonus on Patreon, where we would cover movies that, weren't horror, but had a horror vibe to them. And we stopped doing that after a certain point because it just became very difficult for us to keep up with without burning out. But we said at the time we would continue to do them as they came up in the chronology, when there was a movie that was kind of worth addressing, even if it wasn't strictly horror. The first one we did kind of under that new strategy was Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, also a Roger Corman film.
Exactly. And we are doing it again today with The Raven from 1963.
Oh, it's a new year.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Hooray.
Yay.
This is, as you said, also a Roger Corman movie. It is an Edgar Allan Poe adaptation, and it is part of Corman's Poe cycle, even though it is definitely a horror comedy, probably even more towards comedy than horror, really. But because it's part of the Poe cycle, and also for some other behind the scenes reasons, it's sort of worth covering as part of the story of that series of films. So we are covering it today.
Very cool. I am pretty excited. I think it's very funny that the last horror adjacent film was a Roger Corman flick. I think that's fun.
Yeah. So as you can probably guess from the title, this is extremely loosely based on probably the most famous work by Edgar Allan Poe. So Sarah, what can you tell us about The Raven?
Well, I can tell you that ravens are quite smart. They are larger than a crow. You can kind of identify them from a crow because they have a wedge-shaped tail, a scruffy neck, and a very large beak. They also croak instead of caw. And they recognize people. They can live up to 20 years in the wild. They mate for life.
Sarah, what can you tell us about Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven?
Oh.
You need some time?
No, I'm good. So we've talked about Edgar Allan Poe for many times on this podcast, so I won't go into a huge amount of detail on him, but he was born in 1809 and passed away in 1849 under mysterious circumstances. He was a struggling writer and editor. He was trying to do writing full-time, one of the first to ever try to do that. In fact, he began writing in 1824 and basically just never stopped. So when he was 15, he also struggled with alcoholism, which is likely the reason he died so young. So when you're a full-time writer at a time when that's not really a career path, that means that you have to write in any and all genres in order to pay the bills. And that includes kind of inventing new ones. And so that's a big part of why Edgar Allan Poe is very notable. He produced a lot of material. It's kind of all over the place in terms of genre, from detective fiction, poetry, short stories, literary criticism, satire, humor, the whole gamut of genres. He was also highly plagiarized, so he would fight for copyright law when he was alive. I think that kind of speaks to how popular his works were if he was highly plagiarized. Unfortunately, that meant that like other people got paid for his stuff instead of him. Now, throughout Poe's life, he saw a lot of death around him, his mother dying when he was at a young age, and a lot of that like depression and grief around these losses is likely what contributed to his alcoholism, but also contributed to a very common theme in his works of lost loves. One of the most major female figures in his life is Virginia Clem, who was his 13-year-old cousin. They married in 1836, and she died 11 years later from tuberculosis.
And how many years after she died did he write The Raven?
He wrote it while she was still alive.
Oh, okay. I just assumed she was dead when he wrote this.
No, she was dying. Like, tuberculosis is like a slow death. It's not fun.
Yeah.
So in 1845 is when he published The Raven. So that would be like 2 years. It's really like a year and a half because she died January 1847-ish. So,
got it.
Now, when he was first trying to get The Raven published, he went to his regular journal, Graham's Magazine, and he was turned down. They gave him $15 for his trouble, which is ironically more than he was actually paid for the poem.
Huh.
He then went to the American Review to get it published and was paid $9. The Raven was a huge smash. People loved it, and it immediately sparked copycats, parodies, satires, and a lot of literary buzz around, like, wow, how could someone write something like this? He must have stolen parts of it. No, he must have, like, thought over this for, like, 10 years. No, Poe didn't even write this. It's just someone's pseudonym. A lot of conversation around, like, the making of The Raven, which kind of leads to Poe writing a literary essay the following year called The Philosophy of Composition, which was published in Graham's as kind of a consolation prize of like, sorry, we didn't publish your Raven poem. And the essay is basically how to write well and uses the Raven as an example. So it's him basically being like, here's how you're supposed to write as an author. And you think about everything. Literally every piece in The Raven comes from this specific thing, and I did it all purposefully. The feelings you're feeling, I did that on purpose. Nothing was left to chance.
It's interesting that, like, it's sort of the literary equivalent of, like, artists who post their drawing process videos to prove that it wasn't AI.
No, 100%. I think it's also kind of him also being like, I'm the one who did this. Pay me money to write more things. And people didn't.
Right.
Unfortunately. Now, as far as the Raven poem goes, it's fairly short. It's only like 18 stanzas. So people could pause the podcast right now and go read it. You're fine. But if you would rather just be told what happens, it follows an unnamed narrator. In the essay that Poe publishes later, he clarifies that the narrator is a student. So this narrator is grieving for their lost love named Lenore. It is stormy outside, so a raven comes to roost in the study where the student has been, grieving and studying. And the raven roosts on a bust of Athena. Now the narrator begins philosophizing at the raven. The raven consistently replies, nevermore, as in replying no. So the student finds this funny at first and then starts posing questions like, I don't know, Raven, what do you think? Do you think I'll meet up with Lenore in heaven? Nevermore. Fuck you, bird. You don't know anything. That's kind of the dynamic. So the narrator grows from finding this humorous to being angry to eventually despairing in his grief and kind of going mad as a result. As I said, The Raven was adapted and parodied even when it was first published, but extended through the rest of time. My first exposure to The Raven was through a Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode.
I still think that's one of the best straight up adaptations of the poem, quite frankly.
Honestly, yeah, I would agree. As far as like film adaptations, in terms of The Raven as a title, there is a 1915 adaptation, but that's more of like an Edgar Allan Poe biopic.
Yes.
We covered a film called The Raven in 1935, directed by Louis Friedlander. It stars Karloff and Lugosi. And that, again, is more like using The Raven as the title and then mishmashing a bunch of other Poe short stories together. So we've never actually had a Raven adaptation. And unfortunately, it sounds like that will continue with this film.
Well, as you said, it's like 18 stanzas, so you can't... It's difficult to make it the basis of a movie, right?
Yeah, so the problem with Poe, there are many problems with Poe. That's fine. But he championed the short story above all else because he's like, you should write to the limit of your reader, which is how long they can sit in a chair reading your stuff.
Right.
So a novel is too long. A short story is perfect. But when you're adapting a short story, that's more like a short film.
Yeah.
So when people want to make feature-length films, they have to figure out how to jazz it up a bit.
Yeah, and so as we've seen with Roger Corman, like the general strategy has been to like expand the Poe story out in some way. Or the last time Corman did his Poe thing, it was Tales of Terror, which was like an anthology film. Mm-hmm. So we were doing kind of short segments. After Tales of Terror and Tower of London, Roger Corman took a brief break from genre film to make the Formula One racing movie The Young Racers before returning to the Edgar Allan Poe well. He and Richard Matheson had enjoyed the comedic Black Cat segment in Tales of Terror, which had Vincent Price and Peter Lorre doing kind of a mashup of Black Cat and Cask of Amontillado. And so they decided to go for an all-out comedy for the next Poe film, which suited Richard Matheson just fine because he felt that trying to make an entire movie out of the poem was ridiculous anyway. Mm-hmm. So they really go off book here. Like, I think there's a movie you could make, a like tragic, dark, gothic romance movie or something that like would stick close to the atmosphere and tone of the poem and be about this student and, you know, his lost love, Lenore. And like you could pull in stuff from other Poe poems with dead Lenore in them. Cause there's a few, I think.
He likes the name.
And, you know, and then have it like either have the Raven sequence be the like midpoint of the story or the climax of the story or something. You could do that. That's not what Richard Matheson did writing this script here. You can see where the poem comes into play here, but really this is very much an original story that goes and does a totally different thing.
Okay.
The movie gathers together what was, for Corman at the time anyway, an all-star cast. We've got, of course, Vincent Price here. He is 51 years old at this point, hot off the previous two Roger Corman pictures. Once again, he plays a wife guy, an Edgar Allan Poe wife guy. He's the one bemoaning the loss of Lenore. And then Peter Lorre, who's age 58 here, rejoins him from the Black Cat, and this time he is playing the Raven.
Like in a costume, or is he voicing?
He's voicing.
Okay.
And there's more to it than that, but I'll leave that for when we watch the movie.
I did truly just imagine Peter Lorre in like a Raven outfit. I loved it.
But the big coup for Corman here was securing the services of Boris Karloff to play the villain of the piece. Because, you know, there's more characters than just Dude and Raven this time around. Now, we haven't seen Karloff in 4 years. We haven't seen him since Corridors of Blood in 1958. He is 76 by now.
Wow, good for him.
And he's mostly been doing guest spots on TV in the intervening time, including a 1962 guest spot on the series Route 66 alongside Peter Lorre and Lon Chaney Jr., who were all playing themselves, where at the end of the episode, he donned the Frankenstein monster makeup. one last time.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the story of the episode is Boris Karloff is going to produce like a new series of horror films, and Peter Lorre is arguing with him that like you should just do old Universal style gothic monster movies again. And Karloff's like, no, that's old fashioned. Like nobody wants that in the 1960s. Like we got to do like modern, Psycho style horror movies. And Lon Chaney Jr. is also there. And
poor Lon Chaney Jr.
And Laurie's trying to argue for like the old ways. And the episode ends with like Karloff in his Frankenstein makeup and Chaney in his Wolfman makeup, and Peter Lorre being like, see, people still like the old monsters.
Okay.
Lenore, meanwhile, is played by Scream Queen Hazel Court, who is 36 years old in this film. We enjoyed her in The Curse of Frankenstein. She was also in The Man Who Could Cheat Death, Dr. Blood's Coffin, and most recently The Premature Burial, another Corman Poe film. She reportedly disliked that the critical attention she got for this film primarily focused on her breasts.
Yeah, this isn't even a Hammer film. Why are we focusing on boobs here?
Now, Vincent Price's real-life daughter, Victoria, had been born in April of 1962, so fairly recently to this. But his daughter in the film is played by Canadian actress Olive Sturgis, who was born in 1933 in Ocean Falls, British Columbia. So she is like 30, just under 30 in this movie.
Okay.
And she actually just passed away in February of 2025 at age 91.
Wow, good for her.
Her love interest in the story is the character of Peter Lorre's son, who is played by a 25-year-old Jack Nicholson.
Excellent. So we've seen Jack Nicholson before, but in the horror-adjacent episode on Little Shop of Horrors.
That's right. So
yeah.
This is our second time seeing Nicholson. Little Shop of Horrors was in 1960. So he's back here with Corman. This is actually his seventh film overall in his career. And by this point, he was already feeling like this acting thing might not work out for him. So he was getting interested in writing and screenwriting. And he told Hazel Court each day after shooting that he was going to go home and write, though he never said what he was writing. So The Raven was shot in 15 days, 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's on point with Corman.
Mm-hmm. Peter Lorre ad-libbed a lot of his lines. So a lot of his best jokes are ad-libs, which Vincent Price adapted to very well, but this kept throwing off Boris Karloff, who came to set very prepared, everything, memorized, everything figured out, and he found the ad-libbing quite disruptive.
Well, Price and Lorre have also already been working together in that dynamic, right?
Yes.
Like there was a lot of improv when they were together on the last movie. So.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing is that like Karloff was in a lot of physical pain at this point in his life due to his emphysema. Basically, due to a lifetime of smoking, at this point he had only one functioning lung. So the physical demands of shooting were a lot. So he would like figure out all of his blocking and dialogue like ahead of time and just come in and do it so that he didn't have to like mess around figuring out extra stuff that he didn't have the energy for. So Peter Lorre constantly ad-libbing and throwing him off really pissed him off.
Yeah, that's fair. He also probably like with only one lung, like you, as you said, you don't have the energy, but like for improving, there might be more like physically moving around.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, that's really hard.
Yeah, Karloff found the shoot hard in general. His character had to wear a heavy cape, and so he didn't like that. As well, he also had to be like wired up for flying scenes, which he found very taxing.
You know what? Let's put this 70-year-old man on some wires and throw him across the room.
Yeah, exactly.
My goodness.
So he had a difficult time on this shoot. Peter Lorre and Jack Nicholson also didn't get along, which kind of contributes to this feeling of like father-son tension between their characters, which isn't in the script. It's just the actors not liking each other, even though Nicholson was also an ad-libber and would throw around ad-libs on set. Despite the animosity between them, Nicholson did have praise for the entire cast save one, the Raven itself, which kept pooping on him.
I love it. I love it.
So the Raven cost $350,000 to make, which made it the most expensive Poe film so far, probably because Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, and Boris Karloff in one movie.
Yeah. Like, as you said, it's all-star in the case of horror, so that makes total sense to me.
Yeah, but it was another hit, grossing $1.5 million, about the same as Tales of Terror.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so not the most successful Poe film so far. That's still pitting the pendulum, but like still up there. It opened on January 23rd, 1963 to a mixed critical reception. The comedy, effects, and performances got praise, but the pacing was criticized. It's basically said that it kind of drags in the middle. And the story was also criticized for being nonsense, and the film was kind of written off as a kid's picture.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't write it off as a kid's picture, but it's definitely like for the whole family, you know? Yeah. I know what I'm getting into here.
So the Raven finished shooting on a Friday, and that meant that the sets and equipment and crew were still technically booked until Monday morning, because that's technically how film booking works. Yeah. So Corman was like, well, shit, if I have all these sets and equipment and crew and Boris Karloff and Jack Nicholson for 2 more days, what else can I make? So they did film the movie The Terror on that weekend before the sets had to be torn down. But that's a story for another time when we cover the movie The Terror.
Poor Karloff. He was probably like, oh, looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, and then they drown him in The Terror.
Not really, right?
Not really, no.
Okay.
But he did have to be in like a cold water tank.
What a professional.
But we'll talk about that when we talk about The Terror.
Okay. Well, how are we watching The Raven?
So The Raven is available on the Scream Factory Vincent Price Collection Blu-ray set. It's on Volume 2.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited for this. This is a movie that I've been wanting to see for a while, even though it is comedy, and sometimes I find that frustrating when horror gets lumped in with comedy. But no, I'm excited for this. So folks, if you would like to watch along, hopefully you can find a copy. And when we come back, we'll discuss The Raven from 1963, directed by Roger Corman.
See you on the other side, everybody.
Welcome back to Scream Scene. We just finished watching The Raven from 1963, directed by Roger Corman. Ben, first thoughts?
This is fine.
Yeah.
I had a fun time watching it.
Have you seen this before?
I have seen the climax of this
The wizard battle?
The wizard duel.
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen before.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of this before. I didn't realize it was in color. I don't know why.
Yeah, all the Corman Poe movies have been in color.
Yeah, I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah, I thought Vincent Price was great in this. I thought Boris Karloff was great in this. And yeah, it's fine. Like, yeah. Good hour and a half.
Yeah, fun time at the movies.
So to catch people up in case they weren't able to find a copy, here is the plot synopsis. We're in like 1500s.
Yeah.
Sometime around there. This is, of course, a fictional universe because we have wizards. We open with seeing wizard Dr. Craven. He is still mourning his wife, Lenore, who has passed 2 years ago, and his daughter, Estelle, is kind of worried about him for still grieving her. Now, this night, a raven comes to Craven And this raven turns out to be wizard Dr. Bedloe, who has been transformed into this raven form by wizard Dr. Scarabus.
All the doctors in this movie are wizards.
Yes.
Because the title doctor predates medical doctors. Like, Faust was a doctor.
Yeah.
And his doctorate was like in necromancy. Like,
yeah.
So it's pretty reasonable that all the wizards are called doctors. My favorite thing in this part of the movie, right at the top, where they're like barely adapting the poem, right, is like he's bemoaning his lost Lenore, and the raven comes a tapping, and he lets the raven in, and he's like, "Shall I ever see lost Lenore?" And then Dr. Bedloe, as the raven, says, "How the hell should I know?"
Yeah. So Dr. Bedloe, as Raven, has come to Dr. Craven to be like, "Hey, turn me back. Like, I've been transformed this way, turn me back." And has to coach Craven into how to make the potion that turns him back into a human. Now, Bedloe shares like, "Yeah, I got transformed because I was dueling Dr. Scarabus, who's like the head of like the Wizard Brotherhood, whatever." Apparently, Dr. Scarabus also had like a big beef with Craven's dad, who was the previous head wizard. But yeah, Bedloe got transformed because he lost the wizard battle. And as he's here, he happens to notice Lenore's painting and says, "Oh, who's that? Like, I think I saw her at Scarabus's castle." And this doesn't seem possible to Craven because Lenore is for sure dead. Here is her corpse in the coffin. But he is worried that maybe like her spirit is being controlled by Scarabus. So he's like, "No, we need to go to Scarabus's and see if this is really the case." Now Estelle is worried about her father, so she's like, "I'm coming too." And then as they are about to leave, Bedloe's son Rexford shows up. He's been looking for his dad, being sent by his mom. And so he ends up going with them as well, because he can't let Bedloe out of his sight. So we make it to the castle. There's some bumps in between. Doesn't matter. As soon as we are in here, Bedloe is immediately antagonistic towards Scarabus and challenges him to yet another duel. But as he is getting his like magical contraptions to work, Scarabus seems to accidentally hit himself with lightning and explode into raspberry jam. Like diegetically raspberry jam. They comment on it.
Yeah. A big element here is that like Bedloe needs magic words and like a wand and like other gear to like do magic. Whereas like Scarabus is the superior magician because he can just do magic with like gestures.
And so can Craven. Oops. Bedloe's dead, but it's storming outside, so we all need to stay the night. Rexford ends up trying to get to Estelle because he believes his father's death was not an accident. And so he's trying to get to Estelle to then get to Craven to then get out of the castle. He gets to Estelle, discovers that she's been locked into her room as basically a prisoner. As he goes to find Craven for help, he stumbles upon Bedloe, his father. Bedloe explains like, no, I faked my death so that way I could be here to like help defend you guys. Don't worry. And recommends Rexford get Estelle out of the castle. Don't worry about Craven. Meanwhile, Craven sees a woman outside his window who looks strangely like his deceased wife, Lenore. Turns out it's not a ghost. She, in fact, left him for Scarabus.
Faked her death, she did.
Faked her death. Further, Scarabus lured Craven here to basically try to steal his magic. By this point, it's been made clear that Bedloe is a little bit in cahoots with Scarabus and Lenore.
Yeah, all that stuff with the Raven in the first act was a convoluted
ruse.
Yes.
Because he's been told, Bedloe that is, that Scarabus will share some of his magic knowledge with him if he helps bring Craven here. Now, at this point in the story, it's a little bit, you know, how Scooby-Doo runs across back and forth and we go in circles a little bit.
Bedloe betrays everyone at least once.
Yeah. At this point, our heroes Rexford, Estelle, Craven, and Bedloe all try to escape but are captured. Basically, Scarabus plans to torture Estelle until Craven shares his magical secrets. Bedloe, because he's been captured, he antagonizes Scarabeus to get himself turned into a raven again. Looks like he's going to try to escape, but in fact comes back to tear the rope off of Rexford, so he's freed, and then Rexford goes to free Craven. Craven and Scarabeus have like a short little like magical duel before they realize like, no, like this won't solve anything. We need to have like a for sure wizard battle to the death. This wizard battle goes on for a bit.
Yeah, it's like the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
They trade spells back and forth.
Yeah, it's fine. By the end of this battle, Scarabeus is attempting to bring the castle walls down onto Craven, but this magic is kind of repulsed, and the entire castle begins to crumble around them. So Craven, with Estelle, Roxford, and Raven Bedloe, manage to escape the castle while Scarabeus and Lenore get left behind. Lenore does try to be like, oh, like, I was actually hypnotized by Scarabeus. I've missed you, my husband. And he's like, no, I know what you're up to, and leaves without her. Scarabeus and Lenore survive, but it turns out Scarabeus' magic is basically gone. Back home, Craven bids our breeding pair goodnight and opts to keep Bedloe as a trained raven as a punishment for his overall treachery. And that's the end.
Yeah, so it's fun, as we said. I think everybody in the cast is clearly having a lot of fun. It's really nice to see Karloff again, and he brings a lot of charisma to the role of Scarabeus.
Absolutely. Like, the man, he can either be a grandpa or very charismatic cult leader. And, you know, he does great at both.
Peter Lorre's a delight. I actually liked him better than in Black Cat.
It's kind of the same role.
It's the same shtick, yeah.
Yeah, a drunkard who is always yelling at someone. In this case, it's his son. I didn't really enjoy it, but it's mainly that I don't enjoy that type of character. I think Peter Lorre is doing just fine. I enjoy his kind of raven-like mannerisms as he's like being transformed back into a man, and then even as a man. I did enjoy that.
Hazel Court is also having a lot of fun playing a villainess. I think it's really fun that the script just lets her be like, yeah, I left Craven for Scarabeus because Scarabeus is the better wizard. Like, she's just after being with whoever has the most power. She gets to kind of like cackle at evil things happening. She's also really hot in this movie.
Yeah, it definitely is in line with what Hammer Horror tends to do.
Yes, very
to put
low
it that way.
Very low cut necklines on all of her dresses. It's great. I think honestly the only weak link in the main cast is actually Jack Nicholson. But luckily he doesn't have a lot to do here. Like, he's not supposed to carry the movie.
And I think that's why he feels like a weak link. Like, Estelle feels that way as well, but it's just because like they just happen to be here.
I think Estelle, the actress, does better because
she gets threatened. She gets involved, whereas Rexford is just here.
Well, and also like Estelle's role as a stock character is very clear. Like, you could put her in a non-comedy version of this movie and it would be exactly the same. Rexford kind of has to be both the young dashing hero and kind of a goofball fuck up. And he also can't actually save the day because he's not really a main character. So I feel like Nicholson doesn't really know how to play him. He just seems a little out of his depth here.
Which is fair. You know, I wouldn't know how to play that either. I can only say positive things about Vincent Price here. He works the comedy so well. He's a great physical actor. And I think he, like, far surpasses Peter Lorre in milking the role. Like, Peter Lorre is, like, milking it, but Price really goes for it. And seeing Price and Karloff work together is really fun. However, I was really disappointed by this wizard battle because they're sitting in thrones, tossing invisible things at each other.
Yes.
You know, they get animated in later. And I think they're selling it. But I think what happened, Ben, is you were like off screen, off podcast. you mentioned how parts of the battle between Gandalf and Saruman were inspired from this movie. And so I thought it would be a little bit more dynamic than them, rather than them just sitting in chairs, lobbing fireballs at each other.
Sure. I will say that this wizard duel that you got a little tired of is probably the biggest lasting impact this movie had on pop culture. Because this movie was a huge influence on the spellcasting system of Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure.
Not necessarily like the
mechanics.
Not necessarily the concept of spell slots or spell preparation, which were taken from the stories of Jack Vance, along with several specific spells. But Gary Gygax has said that the wizard duels in this movie, it did inspire various specific spells like Magic Missile and Shield, but more significantly, this movie inspired the verbal somatic material components system of spellcasting in D&D, where to cast a spell, you need to do some combination of magic words, having the right items, or making the right gestures, which is what we see in this movie. I really like the Wizard Duel because it's like a fun collection of early 1960s special and visual effects. It's kind of like a nice little demonstration of like what was capable at the time. It obviously isn't as exciting or energetic as what we have, today. Part of that is the sophistication of the filmmaking. Part of that is like Price and Karloff being like 50 and 70 something years old, which
totally fair.
Christopher Lee and Ian McKellen were also like older chaps when they made The Lord of the Rings, but they had like stunt doubles as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy it for what it is. I think the only part that really feels a little cheap to me is when Karloff animates some gargoyles and the movie does not animate the gargoyles. It just kind of like does close-ups of them with growling sounds to try and get the idea across.
Yeah.
But it is a fun climax. Even if I think one of the weirdest things about it is that nobody talks during it.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably because the visual effects, like the animation and the various like exposure tricks and whatnot, are easier to do if you aren't having people talk.
Yeah, trying to make sure that you're still matching sound to picture.
Yeah, and you need to say half this sentence before we call cut, and then after the rest of the half, and in between the two cuts, like that's when the bird will appear or whatever, right? But it means that like I think that's why it feels a little lifeless, not just that they're sitting down, but also that they're not like saying anything to one another.
It is fun with like how serious Scarabus is taking it and how like silly Craven's going. Like at one point he's like floating his throne above to avoid like I think it's when the gargoyles are, quote, coming to life. Mm-hmm. And at one point he like pretends to be like a scarecrow or birds fly out. Like, yeah, he's just like antagonizing in a very like playful, gestury way.
Yeah, Vincent Price is great in all of that. Even if this wasn't a comedy,
yeah,
I don't think it would be horror. It's really more of like an adventure film.
Sure.
And I found it to be in the vein of something like The Strange Door or The Black Castle, both of which we didn't consider horror, where it's like heroes go to villain's castle, have a little adventure inside and escape.
Yeah, I agree. But what a castle.
It's good.
The set for Karloff's castle is so cool. Like, I recommend just like even watching the opening bit as in like when they arrive to that castle, because it looks so cool. I'm very excited that we get to see it again in The Terror.
Yes, it's very clear why Corman would be like, oh, we got to make another movie with these sets.
Yeah. No, it's very cool. It felt very, honestly, a little like 80s, 90s fantasy
design.
Yeah,
The dark fantasy aesthetic.
Yeah. And I mean that complimentary for the record. Like, yeah, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is a fun movie, but it's not essential viewing by any means.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an interesting little stop on the, like, Poe Corman series.
Yeah, a side quest.
Yeah, exactly. It's like explains why the terror exists. It has that neat connection to Dungeons and Dragons. But like, I think if you're not already a big fan of Peter Lorre, Vincent Price, and Boris Karloff, you're not going to get as much out of it as someone who's just going to have a fun time seeing those three guys like ham it up together, you know?
Yeah, and even to your point about Jack Nicholson's kind of lackluster performance here with a mix of like what that role is and all that. Like, if you were a really big Jack Nicholson fan, I don't think you need to see this movie.
No, go see Little Shop of Horrors.
And The Terror.
Yeah.
Where he actually gets to like have a presence. Well, that's kind of all we have to say. Can I give you a hot take that's unrelated to this movie real quick, Ben?
Sure.
I do like the Saruman and Gandalf fight in Lord of the Rings. But I think a magic fight that is far superior, that always seems to like not get mentioned, is the fight between the two witches in Willow. The Bavmorda and Rizal fight.
Yeah, which has all the like morphing
And ladies yelling da, 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 at each other, like in the rain, and thunder's going. And yeah, I think that is a far superior climactic wizard battle.
I think I'd agree.
Yeah, cool. I thought it was maybe a hot take because no one seems to mention it.
No, I'd agree.
Yeah, thank you. So what are we watching next week, Ben?
Well, Sarah, next week we are journeying to Italy for La ragazza che sapeva troppo, or The Girl Who Knew Too Much by Mario Bava, the first Giallo film.
Wow, I thought we would be watching The Terror next.
No, it doesn't come out for a while.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of editing work that needs to be done on it.
Oh, okay. A lot of post work. This is still exciting. The first Giallo movie.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. I can't wait for it. Well, we will see you then, Creatures of the Night.
Bye.
Bye.